Right now, you're about to get to see the SCA Barista Foundations as it was recorded during COVID.
Look at that magic. Love to watch that espresso just as it changes here. The body and heart and crema all working together. Beautiful harmony. Nice crema on top. So, heart, body, crema. This is a concept of espresso extraction as we extract our espresso. Ooh, that's a big one. That's a good espresso. As we extract our espresso, we want to make sure that we are extracting, pulling all of the goodness out of it that we can. Okay, that's the word extraction in brewing. And so remembering that espresso is a method of extraction. We're taking that finely ground coffee and we're forcing it under hot water in this environment. Now you can see that as time passes on, I just have this pretty black shot here, dark shot, but I still have good crema on top there. Let's turn this down. There we go. That original kind of heart, body, crema, that language is used just to be able to see that there was a complexity to the extraction that was happening. And by focusing on the flow rate of the coffee, I can see that this coffee started out kind of a dark, slow drip, 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 and then turned into a steady stream, this dark, rich mahogany. It turns into this brown, caramel, gooey, like honey or molasses, and then turns golden and just kind of flows lightly and gets thinner. This is all of the different components that are extracting from espresso. Some of those are easily dissolved. Some of those are more difficult to dissolve. But by dissolving a full espresso in, say, 24 or 30 seconds, and by dissolving all of those various compounds, then when stirred together, when added with milk or hot water, you're going to get this nice combination of, wow, intensity. Intense sugar, intense acidity, intense body, intense bitterness. All of these things are harmonizing together, so it's just this intense, balanced cup of espresso. It's actually really good. All right, so when I serve an espresso, this is for training purposes, so I'm drinking out of the shot glass, and I used this so that you could see it. But we would normally serve an espresso in an espresso cup with a plate and a spoon, and we would stir it up. We would offer a packet of sugar, perhaps, or if someone wants a dollop of cream, we could do that. So the crema on top is, it's light and airy, and that spoon is used because we want to make sure that we're stirring up all of those different compounds that have dissolved. Part of that is stirring the crema into the body. Part of that is stirring that heart, and just kind of bringing up those heavy first dissolved solids that might be hanging out at the bottom of the cup or at the bottom of this espresso. Now, if we brew into this and then we pour in here, we're naturally going to create some stirring as that has, pouring it in has created that stirring as well. So brewing into a first container and then pouring it into your service cup that's a great idea. But you do want to make sure you protect your crema if you do so. Okay, so let's look at some of the traditional espresso standards. Now this espresso right here would actually be a very good example of an Italian espresso. And the reason I say that is that I've created a very fun and random assortment of beans. Inside of this, I have a couple different African coffees roasted at various levels. I've got some Indian Robusta, very little that I added in. I've got some Peru and some Colombia. Yes, I do have all of those. So these coffees, such a dynamic blend of coffee, actually creates, and some of this is a little bit darker and a little bit lighter. That's not traditional. You would want to roast everything together at the same level. But this was me just putting some of my beans together. And it actually comes out really nice because I get this body and this sweetness from the Guatemalan and the Peru and the Robusta. I get this acidity and this floral quality sweetness from my African Ethiopian beans that are in there, and they're a little darker roasted, so they're suited toward espresso. But in a traditional espresso like this, I would only grind 7 to 10 grams of coffee for a single shot. That would produce one single shot of espresso. And so 7 grams is very small, because today we'll do, a lot of coffee shops will do a single or a double espresso with 10, 15, 20 grams. And the traditional Italian espresso would pull more water through that coffee. And part of the reason was they had more intense, complex, dark roasted blends of coffee, so they could pour more water through and still keep that heavy coffee flavor. When you look at the other modern recipes, a lot of those are built around this new concept of lighter roasting, medium roasting, light roasting espressos. Well, as I said previously, it's harder to dissolve the material out of that lighter roasted coffee. And so by pulling less water through, you're actually you're still leaving behind a lot of potential coffee. So recipes have changed, but the SCA standards, which are recommended, that you will often find in your practices, in your practical exam, the former practical exam, but some of the practices and exercises, is to start with what's common, a 16 to 18 gram basket. Okay, so this one may even be a 17. And the way that you can tell is, forgive me, I didn't have my spoon and tools ready here. You can pry up this edge right here, and then you can pop out that basket. And some of these baskets, if you have a newer basket, they will be labeled on the side. This is a La Marzocco 17 gram. There we go, La Marzocco 17 gram. So right in between that 16 and 18 kind of sweet spot, with a finer or more coarse ground, I might get 16 or 18 grams into this 17 gram basket. But ideally, a traditional style Italian roast, which will be darker, ground at an appropriate level, should pretty much fill this basket up with 17 grams. And the way that I can tell that is by placing this onto a scale, setting the scale at 0, filling it up, weighing it, and I should be right around 17 grams of coffee. So if you don't have a basket that you can see the side of and read, you can go ahead and weigh it on the scale and just kind of figure that out. But again, if you grind fine, you'll fit more in. If you grind coarse, you won't fit as much in. If it's a lighter roast, it'll be heavier. If it's a darker roast, it'll be lighter. These are some of the variables that go into filling or dosing our espressos. And then you'll hear language like ristretto, normal, long, or normale, lungo. These were based on brew ratios. And so if I put 14 grams of coffee into a 14 gram basket, then I'm going to pull 28 grams of water out. That's going to be something like 35 milliliters, just because volume will show more with the crema and the air that's inside. And that would be a ristretto, which would still be a very small espresso, but you're only starting with 14 grams. Now, the way I move to a normal is that I just pull an extra 14 grams of water out. So my 28 becomes 42. Okay, so a normal would be in a shot glass, it would look like 55, 60. It would look like 2 ounces for that 14 grams. But very seldom will you find at a modern cafe today a 1-to-3 brew ratio used. But I would encourage you at your cafe or when you have the chance to try pulling just a little bit more water through and see how it actually will create balance in the cup and a softness and a sweetness that isn't present with a super strong brew ratio. And then a lungo or a long is just you continue to pull more water through that espresso bed. So it may be 1-to-4 or even 1-to-5. And this is important to know. I remember way back in 2010, I was working at Starbucks and we had some visitors come. Our small town had a local ski resort. We had some visitors from Australia and they were traveling and they were skiing and they wanted espressos. And I pulled the standard Starbucks espresso and I could tell they weren't very happy and they wanted to understand, like, and I think they wanted a long espresso. I remember him saying he wanted a long espresso. And so we talked for a while and I pulled more water through and he said that was actually really good. That's what he wanted. And it was a wonderful way just to learn a bit more about the Australian preference while I was working up in near Seattle, Washington in America. And so understanding some of the basis for what a true ristretto or lungo or normale is will help you as you serve and create new drinks, not just for your local community, but also if you have guests from other countries and other cultures where they drink coffees according to a different standard. So look at that chart, and if you want to experiment on how to pull a better ristretto, a better lungo, experiment with brew ratios, I would love for you to try starting with a 1 to 2.5. That's a little bit more water than you might normally see because a lot of cafes now are using 20-gram portafilters. 20-gram portafilter would mean you would have to pull 50 grams of water, that might make your shot glass overflowing. And a lot of cafes aren't willing to pull that much. So experimenting with less coffee, more water, different grind settings will actually create a much nicer balance in that cup of coffee. So don't be afraid to try some new brew ratios and get back to the basics with some of the Italian espressos, even complex blends, dark roast, Robusta. You can find some beautiful coffees by changing very small variables under this machine. It has a big impact. Good luck. Add your questions and comments, and let's keep going.
Oh, hey there. So just in case I forget to tell you or you haven't seen it already, go ahead and check out howtocoffeepro.com, where we have lots of coffee classes available online for you, or www.sca.training. And you can find resources, lab tools, tasting kits, all kinds of stuff that you need to up your specialty coffee journey. So if you're not already on the email list, then you're probably missing out on some of the great options we have at howtocoffeepro.com or at sca.training. As always, if you leave your comments below, if you subscribe and follow, and if you join that email list, you're not going to miss out on all the great offers, the announcements, the new support and products and courses that we have for you.